Hello, I'm Geoff Kersey, and in the last programme you saw me take this painting to the halfway stage, so now I'm going to carry on and take it right through to completion. So I'm just going to remove the masking fluid with the tip of my finger from that building at the left hand side and then come right across the middle distance on the path there. Make sure I get rid of all the bits. And now I've got a number 8 brush and we'll put this building in on the left, starting with a mixture of raw sienna with a hint of burnt sienna in it. Not much burnt sienna, we're not looking for a bright orange, just a sort of yellowy brown colour. And I'm going to coat the whole of the wall of the building, not the roof comes a little bit later. Just coat the whole of that wall with the raw sienna and burnt sienna. Now in front of this building there is a little bit of grass. So I'm going to take some raw sienna again and add a little touch of cobalt blue. Just to make a fairly cool wintry green, nothing too bright or strong. And I'm letting that soften into the base of the building. And then I can take a little bit of cobalt blue and rose madder, same colour as I've introduced into the sky right at the beginning, and we'll put some of this on the roof, right the way across, behind the tree. Okay, and then while that's drying, I'm going to mix some colour for the whole of the pavement area, and I'm going right back to the very first colour in the sky, which was Naples yellow with a hint of light red in it. Got the number 8 brush still, and I'm starting off with clean water because I want to almost glimpse white paper in the distance there to make it really look like the light's catching it. And then I've got a brush full of the Naples yellow and light red, and I'm sweeping that in with horizontal strokes, bringing it right down to the foreground. And as I get to the foreground here, I'm introducing a little bit more of the cobalt blue and rose madder to grey it slightly and darken it slightly at the same time, bringing it to the front of the scene. And now that needs some time to dry. So now that this building on the left is dry, I'm going to put in a bit of detail, not too much. I don't need to explain it fully. It's in the middle distance, so it's more of a suggestion. And I've got some grey mixture, cobalt blue, rose madder and burnt sienna. And we'll start by suggesting a bit of shadow under the eave. I'm using the number 4 brush again with a good point so I can be quite accurate. So now I'm going to transfer to a 3/16 flat brush. Flat brushes are quite useful for little details like windows because they quite quickly will paint you a little rectangle or square shape. And I'm going to use this right the way along here just to put these window shapes in. Not too much paint on the brush. You have more control if it's that bit drier. Okay, and then at the base of the building there's a stripe of darker colour. Again, the flat brush will be ideal for that. Just sweep it across, quite a brisk stroke. And I think before I go on to the next stage, I need to strengthen that support for the wheel with a bit stronger grey. Put that in quickly. But then I'm going to get a damp clean brush and soften that colour in. So the next stage is to take a number 10 brush and a light wash of raw sienna with a little touch of burnt sienna in it. Very pale this. This is to put a sort of misty shape in to suggest the tops of the trees. But it has got to be quite watery, quite thin. And I'm going to hold the brush with my thumb at one side of the handle and 4 fingers at the other side so that I can drag the flat of the brush across the paper, just suggesting this shape for the trees. Now these trees are in front of the London Eye, so we need to paint it across the front there. And again, you can see why it's important that it's quite faint because we don't want to obliterate all the previous work. And then before that dries, I think I'll take a bit of tissue and dab it just to pale it slightly. And that needs to be dry before we can paint any branches. So now that the background's dry, we'll look at these trees. It surprised me when I walked along the embankment here just how many trees there were. But these are helpful to us as an artist because it saves us having to put too much of the middle distance detail in. I've got the number 4 brush and I'm going to mix a fairly strong brown mixture from cobalt blue and burnt sienna. If I make this too strong at first, I won't allow myself enough in reserve to make the very foreground trees even stronger. I'm starting with the trees furthest away with the thinnest line, painting them up into that shape that we previously put in with the thin raw sienna and burnt sienna. It really helps at this stage that your brush has got a good point. Okay, now building that up, we'll put another one in. Gradually getting nearer to the foreground all the time. And bringing them also, as they get nearer to the foreground, they get a little taller so we can take them further up into the structure of the eye. I'm going to strengthen the colour. I'm going to darken it slightly by adding a bit more cobalt blue and burnt sienna, but no more water, just pigment. Okay, let's bring this one down a little bit lower. And a thicker mark for the trunk. And there's a little square in the pavement where the trees are planted. So with the same dark brown colour, I'm putting that in. Getting the corners nice and sharp and putting it in for each one as well. I can also use this colour and the very point of the brush to suggest a few of the cracks between the pavings and a few perspective lines in here as well. Okay, now I'm going to get the number 2 brush and I'm just going to carry on these branches, letting them get finer and finer as they go up into the sky. The detailer brush is ideal for this. Okay, so now they're complete, I'm just going to take the masking fluid off the foreground tree. The reason I had masking fluid on this one is because it's nearer, we need to see more of a light and a dark side to it. So for the light side, I'm going to mix some raw sienna and burnt sienna. And for the dark side, some burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, giving me probably the darkest tone in the picture so far. You need to have both these colours ready so that they will merge on the paper and give us that rounded cylindrical look. So I'm starting with the number 8 brush and the raw sienna and burnt sienna. The light is coming from the right, so the right hand side of the trunk has the brighter colour on. Don't paint all the way up. If you paint all the way up, by the time you introduce the dark colour, it's dried. So I just go about halfway and then I'm bringing in the number 4 brush with the rich dark brown. This is the burnt sienna and ultramarine. See how, because that's a richer, darker colour than the background building, it pushes it back into the scene. And I'm just softening them in the middle with a damp, clean brush to make them blend a bit more. Okay, now I'm carrying on up into the tree. And after so long, I don't have to worry really about the light and dark side because the colour becomes quite dark as it's silhouetted against the sky. Just a little bit of softening in, and then I'm going to carry on working mainly now with the number 4 brush, still the rich dark brown of burnt sienna and ultramarine, and we'll do some more branches. Bringing them off to the left and off to the right, and remembering that they do cut right across the structure of the eye. I'm taking them out to that wash that I put in previously, and these have got to be a darker tone than the eye itself so that they look further forward. It doesn't matter if your brush gets a bit low on paint towards the top, it thins the branch out naturally. Getting the branches very thin towards the edge of the tree. And I'm using the very tip of the brush to really bring fine branch work across. The thin branch work is just as important as the thick. Let's put another branch in around here, I think. And then take them out to that wash that I've got over at the right-hand side of the wheel. I'm going to slightly thin the mixture so it's a little bit paler, and there's a tree a little bit further back now here. This tree's got to come up in front of that building and partly hide that for us, partly disguise it. Another one to the right of the big tree. There's a little smaller one over here, keeping that really thin. There's these little shapes where they meet the ground. And then I'm just going to finish the trees off by taking the number 2 brush Still the dark brown mixture and just doing some more fine branch work, more or less carrying on where I left off with the previous brush. Just putting in some really fine branch work so it doesn't look too empty. So we'll leave that stage to dry.